Or
nice to see the doors to the Zoom room are opening. Outstanding to see so many people joining us this evening for the town hall. All right, well, we're going to have some people that are going to be trickling in. Just want to kind of make everybody aware that if you didn't know, this is the PGUSD Elementary School Reopening Town Hall meeting. And we're really happy that so many of you are choosing to join us here this evening. My name is Buck Rogeman. I am the proud principal of Forest Grove, and I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Sean Keller, and I'm the proud principal of Robert H. Down Elementary School.
Just want to let you know a little bit of what the format is going to be. Mr. Keller and I are going to go through just a general presentation that is about the hybrid program, and also a lot of the safety procedures that we're going to have in place as we look to welcome our students and staff back to school. So that will probably take, somewhere around 30 to 35 minutes. And after that, we're going to open it up to questions, and we will do our best to answer whatever we can. And whatever we're not able to answer, we will find answers later and get back to you. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I want to welcome all of our district personnel that has shown up here as well. Also, our trustees. It's great to have you here joining us as well. All right. Like I said, my name is Buck Rogeman. I'm the principal of Forest Grove, and I'm really proud to be joined by Mr. Keller, the principal at Robert Down. Mr. Keller and I have been working really closely together this year throughout the distance learning program. We meet every morning at 8:30 in the morning to talk about how things are going at both of our sites and share the exciting work that's going on by our teachers and by our staff. I want everyone to know that the main purpose of our meeting is really to explain our hybrid program, because we want our parents to be able to make an informed choice about which program to choose for their children when the opportunity comes for us to welcome our children back at school. Currently, the PGUSD Board of Trustees has identified August 19th as the target date for our return to school. Would like to let everyone know that on this Thursday, March 4th, the reopening of schools is going to be one of the discussion items at our school board meeting. And at that meeting, there is a possibility that that target date of August 19th could be moved before spring break. We're not really here to discuss moving the start time up at this meeting. This is going to focus more on the hybrid program. However, we do want you to be informed, and so you should plan on attending that school board meeting this Thursday, March 4th at 6:30, and join that discussion. Really what this is it's a preview of the information that you're going to need when the parent survey comes out. We're going to talk a little bit more about the parent survey, but the anticipated staffing for the classes is also going to be included on that parent survey so that parents can make the most informed decision that they can. We're going to be explaining some of the factors that surround the reopening of schools, not only kind of the pros and cons to the hybrid program, but also the possible re-rostering of students that could occur as we keep one class distance learning only and then have the hybrid class as an option as well. We're going to talk about the hybrid day from drop off to pickup, and then we're going to answer questions to the best of our ability.
And before I go over this slide, Mr. Mejia, I did receive a text from one of my staff members saying that some parents are having an issue getting in due to a password issue. So if you could work on that, please. Thank you so much. So why can't we reopen now? Sorry, Mr. Mejia?
I was going to say there's currently nobody in the waiting room.
Okay.
So,
All right. So if people do contact you about any issues, parents, this is being recorded, just so you know. So why can't we reopen now? Well, our Monterey County daily new COVID case rate has fallen below the 25 cases per 100,000 residents. And as of last Tuesday, it was at 18.7, and it's still below that threshold. It allows elementary schools at this time in Monterey County to reopen, and it does not apply to secondary schools like PGMS or PGHS.
Mr. Keller, thank you so much. I do want to correct some information that I got wrong on the first slide. The target date to reopen is April 19th, not August 19th. So my friends that texted me, thank you so much for that. It's April 19th as the target date. The parent survey, we're looking at sending out on Wednesday, and we'd like to have the responses by Friday. This will allow families that would like to attend that school board meeting and see just what that final start date is going to be able to give their responses after the school board meeting. On Friday, we will follow up with families that haven't responded, so we have as an accurate list as we possibly can for who is going to be coming back to school and who will be doing distance learning. We ask that you please complete the survey once for each child and only have one parent complete the survey. We would like to have one set of information for each child. The survey will also have that in anticipated teaching assignment listed, so you can look at your teacher in your grade level and see where that teacher is anticipated to be assigned. You will have two choices on the survey. One is going to be the hybrid program, where the student will be coming to school for a portion of the day and then doing the asynchronous work for a portion of the day. And then the other program will be the full distance learning program. And there will also be a comment section available for you on the survey.
And there will be a limited amount of re-rostering depending on the survey results. And students will only be reassigned to a new teacher if their preference does not match the current teacher's assignment. So for example, if you prefer hybrid and your teacher is assigned as a hybrid teacher, you're going to stay with your current teacher. But if you prefer hybrid and your teacher is assigned to distance learning, then your student will receive a new teacher.
The distance learning program is going to remain basically the same that you've experienced throughout the year. There will be some adjustment times as new students join the distance learning class, but the students are going to be doing all of their learning from home with daily live interaction with the teacher. Any exams and any testing is going to be done online, and the instruction is going to be computer-based as it has been for the start of the school year, and then also include some of the typical materials that you think of with school, such as paper, workbooks, manipulatives, etc. The distance learning program is going to be continued to be built in collaboration by each grade level. So the work that's being done in 4th grade at Forest Grove is going to be the same work that's being done in 4th grade at Robert Down. Across the grade levels, we are going to maintain alignment with the content that's being taught. And there will be a combination of live and recorded instruction as there currently is.
One thing I need to add to the last slide about re-rostering, both Ms. Roach and Ms. Fruden will be sharing advice for parents on how to cope with any kind of changes if that pertains to your student. So with the reopening overview, we will have an AM/PM hybrid model that will have an alphabetical split. Of course, at each grade level, there's different alphabetical last names, so it will depend on the students' last names for that split. There'll be one distance learning class per grade level at each school. Actually, there are a few grade levels that will have two based on the student population in those grade levels. And the anticipated teacher assignments will be built off the data, or sorry, the anticipated teacher assignments that are on the survey were built from the previous parent survey that occurred in October.
That's the reason why it's going to be really important for us to get the current survey data on Friday, because that's what's going to really help us finalize the staffing that's going to be necessary at each one of the grade levels. But those assignments that are on the survey are built off the previous data that we've had. Here's the weekly schedule that we're going to be looking at for the hybrid program. Monday is still going to be designated as an asynchronous day for all programs. So students are going to remain at home and do distance learning on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the hybrid students are going to be coming to school. We're going to have an AM group in the morning and then a PM group in the afternoon. When a group is at school, the group opposite them is going to be doing their asynchronous learning. So as you can see, in the morning, there will be live instruction and the PM group will do their asynchronous. In the afternoon, there's going to be live instruction and the morning group will do their asynchronous work.
And you can see that there's 3 different schedules that we will be providing for the on-campus hybrid program. Our TK and kindergarten will start their instruction at 8:30 each day for the AM group, and their dismissal will be at 10:30. For the PM TK and kindergarten, their instruction will begin at noon, and their dismissal will be at 2 o'clock. For first and second grade, their instruction will begin also at 8:30, but their dismissal will be 30 minutes later at 11 o'clock. For the PM groups for first and second, their instruction will begin at 12:30, and their dismissal will be at 3. For third, fourth, and fifth grades, their instruction will begin at 8:45, and their dismissal will be at 11:15. And for the last PM group, their instruction will be at 12:45, and they will be dismissed at 3:15.
When we're looking at the student drop-off, we have staggered the start times so that we can keep our traffic as limited as possible as the students come to us at these staggered starts. Both schools are going to have multiple entries, and the students are going to enter those gates based on the classroom location. We're going to do a temperature check at the gates for the students as they enter campus, and we're going to have staff there that's available to help direct students to classrooms, especially on those first couple of days back. Our preference is for siblings to enter their designated gate, even if it is not the same as the sibling. And if one of the siblings has a later start day, they might have to wait for a few minutes at the gate to enter campus until we have a teacher in the classroom to receive the students. And those teachers will be in the classrooms 15 minutes before the start time to receive their students. Here is a diagram of the Forest Grove drop-off area. If you look at the bottom of the map, you will notice the front of our school. This is the drive-through area. Students are going to enter the gate here if they have classes in the B or C wing. Here is the maintenance gate that's off of Congress. We're going to use it as an entry to the school during hybrid learning. And those students that are in the K wing, our kindergarten and TK students, will enter here. And then our students that are in the E wing are going to also enter here and join the classes there. At the gate that's by the playground, by the play structure, this is where our students that are in the G wing are going to enter, as well as our students in the D wing.
At Robert Down, we will have 4 entrances since we've split our campus into 4 quadrants. In the top left is the A quadrant, and that drop-off is our normal drop-off, which is on the corner of Spruce and 13. For the B or purple quadrant, parents will be able to actually drive onto the playground, both for drop-off and pickup, for both AM and PM. And for the C or green quadrant, that will be off of Pine Avenue near the co-op. We'll have 3 spots that will be dedicated for drop-off and pickup each day. And for the D quadrant, we will be using the current bus drop-off area for pickup, drop-off and pickup.
The hybrid instructional day is going to have 120 minutes of live in-person instruction for our TK and kindergarten students. There'll be 150 minutes of live instruction for students that are in grades 1 through 5. And the instructional emphasis is going to be on English language arts, math, and then of course that social emotional support that we would like to lend our students as they transition from the distance learning program into the hybrid model. We think that one of the biggest benefits of bringing our students back to school is going to be that social emotional aspect of it for our students. At Forest Grove, we've had the good fortune of starting our small group cohorts at our school. And I have to say that one of the biggest benefits has just been the joy on the students' faces as they've returned to school. You can really see that they appreciate being back on campus. And we look forward to that aspect of the hybrid program as well. The distance learning content is going to be taught live to our students. So if you look at it that way, they're still going to be doing the same content that they have been doing with distance learning. The only difference is that they're going to be being taught live now.
So when you add up the minutes for the asynchronous instruction in our hybrid model, they do equal what we're seeing with our current distance learning model. For TK and Kinder, in hybrid, they'll have 120 minutes in person with 60 minutes of asynchronous time for a total of 180. For first through third, they'll have 150 minutes in the hybrid with 80 minutes of asynchronous for a total of 230. And for fourth and fifth grades, it will also be a total of 150 minutes for hybrid with 90 minutes of asynchronous for a total of 240 minutes.
In this hybrid learning plan, there are always going to be advantages and disadvantages. And so we want to talk about a few of them. So as you sit down to make your choice, when you get the parent survey, you can weigh them and decide what is going to be the best choice for your child. Some of the advantages of the hybrid program is that there's live instruction with live feedback. That in-person feeling of being in school that's been missing through to distance learning will be back for our students and for our teachers, even though it's going to be COVID school. And we'll talk a little bit more about the safety measures that are going to be in place. It will also give us a chance to reestablish the classroom routines. Teach students once again what it is to sit in a desk and to engage in your classwork inside of a classroom as opposed to at home. Also, there's going to be live peer interaction. We know that our students have missed out on that social growth that comes with interacting live with their peers, and this program will give us an opportunity for that. And the students will be on campus for 4 days out of the week. Some of the disadvantages is that there's going to be less feedback during the asynchronous time from their teachers. The teachers are going to be teaching the other group live while the student is doing the asynchronous learning, so they won't have as much time to give feedback to those children that are doing the asynchronous work. There's also going to be less small group instruction because the ability to do breakout rooms is going to be limited as well. Also, it's going to be very different school than school before COVID. The students are going to be separated within the classroom by 6 feet. When they go out for structured play, there's going to be designated areas on the playground and specific activities that they'll be able to do every day. And of course, they're going to be wearing masks and washing their hands a lot. So it's going to be a little bit different than what they've experienced in school before. And then, of course, there's the possibility that a student's class is going to change. We're going to talk about that as we move forward throughout the evening.
So each day on campus, the students will have snack and structured play for 20 minutes at all grade levels. The snack will be indoors when possible due to weather. And there will be separate play activities for each class, rotating around both playgrounds at Robert Down and Forest Grove. And of course, they'll be able to play on the structures. And the classes will have their own equipment, which will be wiped down after use by our staff.
As for lunch, we're not going to actually be eating lunch on campus. However, students are still going to have access to a lunch. So the morning students are going to receive kind of a grab and go lunch at the end of the morning session that is going to be delivered to their classrooms. So at the very end of the morning session, a lunch is going to come. The students will leave the campus and then have lunch at home. Our afternoon students can continue to use the lunch distribution sites that the district has open from 11:30 until 12:15. These sites are at Robert Down at PG High, and then also at the corner of Arkwright and Moreland. So we still will have lunch for our students, but that lunch service will not be on campus.
So in our restrooms, each stall will be designated for a particular grade level, and there will be no more than 2 students at a time using a restroom. And students will clean their hands every time they leave and enter a classroom.
As far as pickup goes, our teachers are going to walk the students to their designated gate at the end of their session, where there's going to be a supervisor waiting to supervise the children. The teachers will walk them to the gate, and then the teacher is going to have their lunch or the end of the day. And then if students are not picked up after 10 minutes, they will be brought to the front of school where the supervisors will wait with them until they're picked up. The parents are asked to arrive as close as possible to that pickup time so that our staggered start time can be effective. One of the things that we did when we staggered those start and pickup times was that we were hoping we could move families in and out in an efficient manner so that we're not crowded and it's not packed when we're doing our pickup time.
For our special education students, they will receive all related services remotely. And I'm talking about speech, occupational therapy, and any kind of intervention or specialized academic instruction. For our SEC families, they will be contacted by case carriers if any adjustments to our current minute plan must be made.
As far as daycare, the before and after school recreation program will be dependent on staffing and space constraints. If you're planning, the best plan would be to plan on not having the BASRP services available. If we are able to offer them, it's going to be on a limited basis because we are still going to need to try to keep our students in cohorts, which is going to limit the amount of spaces that we would have available. If something changes with regard to our daycare, we are going to inform our families immediately.
And unfortunately, the same goes for transportation. Families should plan on transporting their students to school each day because busing, unfortunately, will not be available at this time.
All right, we wanted to talk a little bit about the safety procedures that are going to be going on at school. And you will see that there's a link to our COVID safety plan that PGUSD has developed. All of this information that we're going to share grows out of that safety plan and can be accessed there. We are going to share a copy of this presentation with all of our families after we're done, and that link should be live and take you to the COVID safety plan. You see some of the things that we're going to be talking about over the next several slides.
So as the students arrive, there will be a wellness check with the temperature being done at each gate. They will be monitored throughout the day for any kind of symptoms, much like, flu-like or COVID-like. And those include headache, chills, cough, sore throat, congestion not related to allergy or asthma, new loss of taste or smell, difficulty breathing not related to asthma, muscle or body aches, stomach ache, diarrhea, or fatigue. And if you know your student is suffering from any of these symptoms, please leave them at home. This is not time to send kids to school when they don't look or feel well.
If a student has symptoms while they're at school, the staff is going to contact the office, and the health clerk is going to escort the student to the designated area that has been made at each one of our sites to do the status check on that student. The school is going to contact the parent to pick up the student once that determination has been made. And the parent is going to be instructed to keep the student home until no signs or symptoms of illness are present for at least a full 24 hours without any kind of over-the-counter medication. The family then should consult with their healthcare provider for evaluation and then also to make the decision if testing is warranted. If your student does have seasonal allergies or asthma, something along the lines of that, and it is not part of the current health record, please call the school so we can update that health record and add those notes to our list. The person to contact at our school are the health clerks.
And I know one of the biggest questions for families is, what will we do if we have a confirmed case of COVID? And just so you know that in our safety plan, you can find those on page 12 and 17. So first thing, we are going to contact our district nurse. She will begin assembling a list of possible close contacts for tracing purposes with the county. The exposed area will definitely be closed for 24 hours so it can be disinfected before its next use. Both Mr. Rogeman and I will work with health officials to support contact tracing and determine the level of exposure. Any close contacts will be notified and advised to a quarantine for 14 days and advised to contact their healthcare provider. Members of student household are advised to quarantine also for 14 days. And the student will return to school after meeting criteria to end their quarantine.
When a student is in quarantine, an individual student will join the distance learning class for their instruction. So if it's a single student that has to quarantine, then that student would join the distant learning class. If it's an entire class that had to quarantine because of the close contacts of a COVID positive case, then the teacher of that class will continue teaching using the distance learning format that we've become so familiar with throughout the year. Then once everyone is cleared the quarantine, then we would return to class back to that hybrid program.
And face coverings will be required. Again, this is on page 29 of our COVID safety plan. All students and staff who are able must wear face coverings. Staff will have extra masks available for students who forget to bring one, and we're making plans to have them at the gates as well. And students will be reminded how to properly wear their mask if they're not doing so.
One of the things that's been nice to see, both with our special day classes and the small group cohort, is our students are doing a wonderful job of wearing their masks. At times they need to be reminded to pull the mask up, but they've been really good about doing that. And we haven't had any that have refused to wear a mask or been defiant with us. So we're very optimistic that this part of the plan is going to go well. As far as the hand washing goes, students are going to clean their hands every single time they enter or exit a classroom. And we've got physically distant hand washing stations that have been installed at both of our schools. And the students are also going to be trained how to properly wash their hands. That will go through how you put a little bit of water on your hands, soap and lather, get the fronts and the backs of them, then do each finger on an individual basis on both of your hands. Wash your fingertips, tickle your palms, rinse them off, and then dry those hands again so that they will easily surpass the recommended amount of time washing their hands as they learn to be good, really thorough hand washers.
And these are the new hand washing stations that have been installed by our miraculous maintenance crew. And you can see that 3 students will be able to wash hands at the same time. I know at Robert Down, we have 4 of these stations inside our building. And Mr. Rogeman, how many do you have at Forest Grove?
We've got 3, and they're on the outside of the B, C, and D wings at our school facing the playground. In terms of physical distancing, our staff and students are going to maintain 6 feet of separation as much as practicable. That means that a teacher might have to come closer to 6 feet to assist a student with something. And there might be times when students are out playing where they get a little bit closer to each other than we would like. When that occurs, we're going to give a gentle reminder to the students and do everything we can to structure the activities that students do, so maintaining that distance is going to be feasible. The classroom for furniture is going to be set up so we can maintain that 6 feet of separation in the classroom. And then in addition to that, we're also going to designate some outdoor areas for classes to use as an instructional space as well. The students are going to remain with their class during the structured play activities to maintain these cohorts. And we're going to set up the kinds of activities that can be done while maintaining separation.
So I'd like to thank Forest Grove for providing the sample room. You can see that teachers really would like to have student desks next to each other. And Mr. Rogeman will point out with his cursor that we will have students sitting in a zigzag formation for either the AM or the PM in order to provide that 6-foot distancing in each classroom.
Correct. Here's another view of the classroom from the front. Once again, if you could envision a child in every other seat in kind of a zigzag pattern, that gives us that six feet of separation. And when the opposite group comes in, they would use the other set of desks. As far as, okay, Mr. Keller, that one's yours.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Rubin. So airflow is really important. If you were able to watch the current video from Dr. Noble, she repeated over and over again, masks, 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 and airflow in a classroom. And this is in order to transfer the clean air into the room, and it's proven to be the most effective. Our doors and windows will remain open to the extent possible. And I know kids lose their coats a lot in elementary schools, but please provide them. It may be a little cold here in PG. And our HVAC systems are functioning to their full capacity at this moment.
All right, the routine cleaning is kind of described on page 40 of that COVID safety plan. And the classrooms are going to be disinfected between the AM and PM hybrid groups, as well as before the AM class. The high-touch surfaces are going to be wiped down throughout the day by our custodial crew. And there's also going to be microfiber cloths and hydrogen peroxide in each one of the classrooms for spot cleaning as needed. We have an electrostatic sprayer that helps to kind of speed up and more effectively apply the disinfectant that's going to be used in the classrooms. And there's also nanotech technology, which is a single application product that is effective for up to 90 days to help disinfect the rooms as well.
And we really want to thank everyone for coming tonight. We know this has been a long haul. We've almost met our anniversary of a year of students not being on campus. So thank you so much.
And now is a great time for folks to ask questions if they have questions for us. And we see our first hand up from, that's either Mr. or Miss Golnaz. Hello. You know what, if you can unmute yourself.
There we go. Okay, sorry, it's my thumbs are big and the phone is small. Sorry. So I was taking notes as you were explaining. You mentioned, so do not count on daycare. Transportation is with families. It's only half day for 5 weeks, 5 or so weeks. And so the question I do have for you is that, is there a reason why we're doing half days and not the original plan that was discussed months ago about like 2 days on and 2 days off? And because this is going to be really difficult, I believe, for families to, especially people who work like full time, to have to like drop on and off like the kids midday. And would families be kept together? So if siblings are in different grades, would they share the same half day? And in terms of a bathroom, you showed an image of the water line where they can wash their hands. I know that the bathrooms in the original state is like, you tap on the faucet and it's just like less than 10 seconds and it turns off. Like, would they have to keep pushing that pump, or will it like run for the whole happy birthday song completely so that they actually be able to wash their hands correctly? And in terms of, and I know it's a lot of questions, but in terms of exposure, you mentioned that if it's a single family, what would happen to the other families that are within the same classroom, and or those who actually shared the same playground with each other? With the whole like half day students be sent home, and how would that work? Thank you.
Sure. Going to start to answer the questions, and if I don't get them all, it's just feel free to remind me as we're moving along. I'd like to start with the first question that talked about the choice for the AM/PM model as opposed to the 2 days a week model. Both of the hybrid models have pros and cons to them. One of the reasons why we chose to go with the AM/PM model is that in a consultation with our teachers, we felt that having that more frequent contact for the students would be more effective than having students for 2 days, than having almost an entire week go by without seeing the students the next time. Also, our teachers felt like the delivery of the asynchronous program would be more effective doing it in smaller portions. So in the current model, you're looking at about 150 minutes of live instruction with 80 or 90 minutes to supplement that with asynchronous instruction in grades 1 through 5. Whereas in the full day model, a teacher would need to design an entire day's worth of asynchronous activity that would run simultaneous to the full day program. And they didn't feel like that would be as effective of an instructional model. Yes, we will make absolutely sure that siblings are looped together within the same morning or afternoon group. So even if the siblings do not have the same last names, if we have a mixed family and their names fall in different parts of the alphabet, we will make sure that they wind up in the same cohorts. With the hand washing stations in the bathroom, to my understanding, once the students' hands are wet and they have the soap, that the time that they spend lathering the soap does not necessarily need to be under a running faucet. So that even if that faucet turns off as they're washing their hands and doing the lathering and rub down portion of the hand washing routine, they can then turn the water back on and start washing their hands.
Yeah, real quick, Mr. Rogeman, for the hand washing stations that we showed you, there's a little key that turns them on, and the water, it has a consistent flow and spray for the children.
Correct. With regard to who would need to quarantine and what would define a close contact, we are going to follow the guidelines of the Monterey County Department of Health if a COVID case is identified. So they're the ones that would tell us like what groups would need to quarantine. A close contact is defined as being closer than 6 feet with another person for accumulation of 15 minutes in a 24-hour period. So that would define who would be a close contact. And then what we would do is follow the guidelines from the County Department of Health as far as who would need to quarantine as far as that goes. Simply coming in contact with a play structure that another student had used who later tested positive would not qualify as a close contact. Also, we're going to lean pretty heavily on our hand washing and hand cleansing to help address any kinds of those kind of random encounters with virus that might come up. That's the reason why we're being so stringent about students cleaning their hands as they're leaving a classroom and also cleaning their hands as they return to a classroom. So that hand cleansing is going to be emphasized throughout the entire day, and it's going to occur multiple times throughout the day. So I hope that answers most of the questions. Okay.
Our next parent is Jen Fletcher.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. I just wanted to say we're so excited to be going back to school. My kids are dying to get back to school. And I just wanted to say a couple of things. I wanted to suggest that maybe you have the kids bring an extra mask in a Ziploc bag to put in their backpack in case their mask gets too wet or dirty or, and then also maybe having a little hand sanitizer, their own personal one, whether they keep it in their pocket or they put it in their backpack, and whenever they feel like they need to use it, they can use it.
Jen, all of those suggestions to, increase the amount of safety are great ones. Just so you know too, that we will have enough masks so that we would have 2 extras for every student for every day that we have left in the school year, and the same for our staff. Sorry if I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. And I just wanted to say, my kids both have seasonal allergies, but they're also allergic to fragrance. So, I mean, I'm going to give them their own little, fragrance-free hand sanitizer, but is that something, do you guys have some unscented in case, the kids that are kind of sensitive to it?
I can check, but I believe that all of the sanitizer that we have at school is unscented, and it applies with the district's scent-free district policy.
Board policy.
Yeah.
Mr. Kelly,
Okay.
are you the one ordering the hand sanitizer, or is it Nurse Powley?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, you're still on mute, Mr. Kelly.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yeah.
I've been ordering the ones going in the classroom for the automatic dispensers, and those for fragrance free. And then Nurse Pally has been ordering the bottled ones.
Great. And thank you, Nurse Powley, for getting so many extra masks for our students. Really appreciate it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for answering my questions. And we're just so excited. And thank you for all of your guys' hard work.
You're
Happy
welcome.
to do it.
Thank you.
Our next parent is Laura, Sophie's mom.
Hi, I just have a quick question. I wasn't sure if I kind of missed it in the beginning of the slideshow or not, but is there any talk of having colored shirts for the different cohorts to kind of manage or to better manage the chances of exposure?
Laura, we haven't talked about that yet. One of the things we think that we're going to be able to have enough space on the playground and enough concentration within the classroom that we will be able to maintain those small groups without mixing between the children. The structured play is going to look different than normal recess. Normal recess, the kids are kind of free to run and play kind of wherever they want to. Here we're looking at establishing about 5 or 6 stations on the playground that are separated by about 30 to 40 yards each, and have an activity that goes on at each one of those stations, so that all of the classroom children remain within their classroom group even while they're out on the playground. And they will go straight to the classroom from the time they check on campus, and they'll be escorted by their teacher to the pickup area when we're ready to leave. So we haven't talked about issuing any kind of uniforms or colored shirts for our students at this time.
Is that all your questions? Okay, our next parent is Jana Nunard.
Yeah, hi, this is Zara, Jana's mom. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the detailed plan that you discussed. I have just one question. Say, for example, you have divided the students into 2 groups, but it's up to parents to choose for that hybrid classroom, to be in the hybrid classroom. Say, for example, one teacher's all students or most of the students choose the hybrid program, and then one teacher has very few or none. How are you going to handle that?
Well, it will be a case-by-case scenario. Again, as we stated earlier, there may have to be re-rostering.
Mr. Keller, if I may,
Sure.
One of the other things that we'll be doing is the students that are in the distance learning teachers class who choose to go into hybrid will be placed into hybrid classes. So in the kind of example that you just stated, most of the students going from the current distance learning class would be placed in the hybrid class that had the fewer students in it. So most of the balancing of the hybrid classes is going to be done through the re-rostering of those distance learning families that are choosing to go hybrid. Hopefully that helps a little.
Our next parent is Ben R.
Would you mind throwing the slide back up with the schedule? I was a little bit confused about the 200, like my son's in 2nd grade, there are 230 minutes required total. And then you had mentioned that they would have a 20-minute recess. So I didn't know where that fit into the whole schedule, if that was part of the 2.5 hours that they're in class.
Yes, it is, Julie. That it's going to be part of the 2.5 hour day, and it's going to fall as close as it can toward the middle of that day. And we've also staggered those times so that all of our students aren't taking their structured play break at the same time.
So does that mean to add up to 230 minutes, there'll be more? So there's really only 120 minutes during live instruction, and then the rest will be made up in distance learning asynchronous to get to 230?
It's going to be 130 minutes of classroom time plus 20 minutes of the opportunity to play outside. And we think that one of the biggest benefits of coming back to the hybrid program is giving the students a chance to have some of that physical activity with the students there with them as well. Yeah,
I agree. And then my last quick question is, what is the max number of students in the classroom for AM or PM? Is there, it may be different between the two schools, but.
The maximum is 14 according to the state guidelines. And the state gives leeway to schools that have to exceed that number of 14. Because we're fortunate enough to have class sizes that aren't in the mid-30s, we don't anticipate having to have any class size that would exceed 14 students.
Thank you.
And just for Robert Down parents, our classrooms are pretty small, so the limit will be a little bit smaller than 14, more like 11, 12. But we'll have to see what the survey results provide us and what we're dealing with once we have all those numbers in front of us.
As far as the spacing goes within the rooms too, the state does give a little bit of leeway with regard to the 6 feet of separation of the desks within the classroom. The district has to show a good faith effort to create that 6 feet of separation. But if the separation winds up lower than 6 feet, greater than 4 feet, then we're still in compliance with the guidelines that we've been given. We are going to make every effort that we can, especially with the smaller class sizes that we have, to get to that 6 feet range.
Our next parent is Marie Hunter.
Yes, hi. I had a question regarding the products you guys are going to be using for disinfecting the aerosols.
Mr. Kelly, that was a question for aerosol products that we'll be using for cleaning.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We are using Virex, and that's for our disinfectant, and then our regular everyday cleaner is called Alpha HP, which is just a hydrogen peroxide cleaner. Neither one of them are in aerosol form. We're using the electrostatic guns, which basically just is a mist. It electrically charges the solution so it can wrap itself around physical desks and stuff like that, but it doesn't stay in the air for very long, and only for probably a few seconds until it hits the surface and then dries, but nothing's in aerosol form.
Okay, great. Good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Next question is from John Schrader.
Hi, yes. One question is, are you going to be announcing the distance learning teacher prior to the survey coming out? Because that will determine that. I think that will change people's minds on what they choose.
Yes, both staffs for the respective surveys, the staffs will be listed with their distance learning or hybrid method of instruction.
So the teacher will be identified. Each teacher will be identified. Of who's going to be the distance learning teacher will be identified prior to the survey, so that parents will know if they choose to go hybrid, they will be reshuffled. They will be re-rostering if their teacher's the distance learning chosen to be the distance learning teacher.
It'll be on the survey, so we won't release it prior, but when you receive the survey, you'll see those lists.
Okay, and then you can choose to go back. So you choose to go distance learning, and you can always, or hybrid model, you can always go back to the distance learning.
Yes.
Okay. And then I guess the other thing is, so say you guys talked about there may be a case by case where you reshuffle, but say you've already chosen a teacher who's going to be identified as the distance learning, and then all those students chose to, they all want to go back, and then another class didn't. Would you then change that teacher? Because then you'd be reshuffling a whole class for no reason, causing more mayhem.
Well, there's a lot going into that. If the teacher has provided, a note to remain in distance learning, it changes, for our agreement with our union in our memo of understanding. I understand what you're saying, but if that happens, we'll have to deal with it.
But if the teachers don't, but the teacher's okay with going back, would you then change the teacher?
We'll have to meet with that grade level at the respective site first before we make any kind of move like that.
Okay.
Mr. Schrader, it sounds like you're saying that if the survey results kind of drive us to the point where we need to make a staff assignment that's kind of contrary to what's listed on the survey, how would we handle that? And I think that what we need to do is kind of approach that situation as we come to it. Right now, we've got the anticipated staffing, and that's going to be listed on the survey, hoping that that helps to inform the parents. And then, when we actually get the numbers, if those kinds of circumstances come up, then we'll talk about the best way to handle that.
I agree. I also think you're going to get false data, because parents who see that their teacher's is going to be the distance learning teacher may then be inclined to not go hybrid because their student would then be shuffled. And so then that teacher, those students in that class would then, miss out potentially. That's a hard decision that parent has to make based on an arbitrary decision of who you pick to be the distance learning teacher.
We understand that, which is the reason why we wanted to have that information available to our parents as they're making their choices. Because I think that for some parents, it might depend on whether their teacher is distance learning or hybrid. And for other parents, it's going to be more important for them to choose either hybrid or distance learning, even if it means re-rostering the child.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Our next parent is Elliot Hazen.
Hi, thank you very much. Sorry, I've got a few. I'll try to go quickly, but following quickly on that point is one survey option could just be a choice to stay with their teacher of preference. And that way, if there is a change, the child could say, they want to stay with that. The separate drop-off times for, first and fifth grade in our situation is a little concerning, because it means we might have our first grader either standing outside for 10 to 15 minutes outside of the gate, or we'll have to have separate drop-off and pickup times for both of our kids. Would love to know how there's thoughts about a hangout area potentially for that. You mentioned the HVAC units on full. Is there additional air filtration as part of that? What kind of filters are you guys using to ensure that? Because I really appreciate the hand washing and the disinfecting, but we know now that that is not the primary mode of transmission. And I should have started. Thank you guys so much. It's clear the amount of work that went into this on parts of the administration and teachers. So I don't mean to be difficult. The last time too, and maybe I missed this, but you guys were planning an AM, you're planning a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday model instead of this AM, PM. Some parents such as ourselves have worked out a situation with having our kids in distance learning, and a Monday, Tuesday model would actually work a lot better for our situation than the morning, afternoon. But so I'd just be curious if there was a reason why. Was that parental request? And then the other big one, or two other big ones, the lack of buses concerns me, not for my kids, but just in terms of equity. Like, how do you make sure that the kids that most need to be in person are going to be in person if they're not able, parents are working and they can't get to, school without the buses? Last point, and then I'll be quiet, is there are, what about situations where teachers want to do both in-person and DL? Is there any flexibility for that a teacher could handle both if they are willing? Not saying they have to because it's additional work, but I'd be very curious to know if that's an option that has been considered. Thank you very much. I have those written down if it would be easier for me to send them along later.
I wrote them down too, Elliot. We're going to do our best.
Mr. Keller, I think I can kind of start with the drop-off times questions. One of the things that we did, Elliot, when we built those schedules was we tried to have the youngest students' drop-off times be the earliest ones, so that the student that may have to wait by the gate for the gate to open would be the older students. Also, we can have the supervisor at the gate. It's just that we can't allow the student to go to the classroom until the proper time, because we have to have a teacher supervising the classroom for the student to enter. With regard to the filtration, I think that once again, we can bring Director Kelly in on the conversation as far as that one goes.
I feel like the Verizon guy. Can you hear me?
We can.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, so all of our HVAC systems are, like I said, working the way that we had originally planned. The original plan was to really use the air circulation and bring in outside air to do air exchanges instead of filtering and cleaning air with a single unit. The board directed me a couple meetings ago to look at alternative filtration, and we are getting bids right now for I'm drawing a blank on it, like a luminescent type of filtration. It's like basically like a UV light that you put on the return air that cleans the air as it goes into the unit itself. So that could possibly be, I don't know if that'll be in by the time we get back to school, if we go back earlier than April, but we are moving ahead with that right now. Do you want me to tackle the transportation while I'm here?
Yeah, of course. But going back to that question, once you receive the items, do we have to bid it out? Will your maintenance crew be able to install them? And how long will they take to install?
I don't have a timeline on installing yet. It'll probably be an outside contractor installing. I'm going to keep our maintenance crews centered on other needs of the district with COVID. I don't want to take them off of that. And then it really just depends on when we can get materials. I do know most materials are pretty readily available, so I think we can get within a week or two. How long it takes, I don't know that. I don't have the answer to that question yet. That'll be determined once I get bids and can negotiate with the contractor.
Thanks. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. And then transportation, we're not able to provide transportation because we're really focusing on special ed transportation. So we are doing transportation. It's just the basically keeping those cohorts separate. Our drivers are already exposed to a couple different cohorts, and we keep those special ed kids separate. And so it takes a couple drivers to get those kids to school in the mornings. We have to do special ed transportation. So if I have drivers go down, it really puts us in a bind for those kids and getting them to school. As the vaccine comes online, though, and as possibly the drivers are fully vaccinated and we're more comfortable with exposing them to separate cohorts, we may look at that point to opening up a home to school transportation route.
Thanks, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
Elliot, I think the last question had to do with the teacher choosing to do both the person and distance learning, which would mean that their class would not need to be re-rostered. One of the things about coming to an agreement about the reopening of schools is that it's worked through, the bargaining units. And so the reopening plan that we have, the memorandum of understanding that kind of governs this whole process is built on creating the conditions that will be comparable for each teacher, across the board. And so when we built this, we did not offer the opportunity for, a teacher to individually decide to take on the distance learning cohort as well as the hybrid students as well. Also, we think that in terms of, the content delivery, that it'll be more effective if a teacher is able to concentrate and focus on the group of students that they're currently teaching. So while they have the hybrid students, they could focus on those hybrid students, and the teachers that are doing the distance learning can be 100% focused on the distance learning students. We feel that if a teacher has some students live and another group of students that are online, that it's going to be difficult for that teacher to maintain the type of focus that's needed in order to do the most effective job.
Now, Elliot's last question was about, again, our switch from AB model to AM/PM. And I know Mr. Roman did discuss that. I'm not sure if you were here, Elliot. I know for myself, that's okay. I'll let him repeat what he said, because honestly, Buck, I forgot what you said. Okay. But I know for myself, when I was talking about this with groups, it was about the exposure to school in order to come back, and about the emotional well-being for kids, and just having more consistency. That was kind of the key thing that we discussed when we made the decision to go from AB to AM/PM, was the consistency of school 4 days a week as opposed to 2.
Right, that was one of the main factors, was that we didn't want that amount of lag time from when the teacher would have the ability to see that student. Also, we talked about putting together the asynchronous program that has to run parallel to the hybrid, to the live instruction. And in talking with our teachers, they said that the quality of the asynchronous program delivered in smaller amounts over the course of 4 days would be a better quality than trying to put together an entire day of asynchronous learning that would run parallel to the distance learning. So that's basically the two main educational factors that went into that decision. That consistency of having the students here for four days a week, and then also kind of the shorter bits of asynchronous time that would combine with the live instruction.
Our next parent is Kelly Sanfilippo.
Thank you for doing this, Mr. Keller and Mr. Rogman. This is really great how you guys have been reaching out to parents and keeping everybody informed. I have 2 questions. The first is, as far as the survey goes, when we make a choice, we're committed to that choice through the end of the year, or if you choose hybrid and decide it's not working, can you go back to DL? I think another parent asked that, but I missed the answer.
Yeah, we think it would be easier to go from hybrid back into DL.
Yeah.
You know, of course, we'd like parents to stick with that choice based on numbering and possible re-rostering.
Okay.
But, you know, it's definitely something to consider once you make that choice.
Okay.
Mr. Keller, too, also the legislation that kind of guides this mandates that the school have a distance learning option available for parents. And parents have to have the ability to access that distance learning when they decide to do so. It doesn't mandate the opening of schools. So if you do choose distance learning, then it's our preference for you to maintain distance learning until the end of the school year, if that makes sense.
Makes things easy for you. My second question is, I believe it was at the last board meeting when the date was set for April 19th, it was brought up that the reopening would start with TK first for 2 days and then go first, second, and then does that happen with this, with the 4-day model, or what is it?
You just identified a missing piece from the presentation. Thank you for that. We really appreciate it. Yes, that our intention is to do a phased in approach to this. So the first groups that would start would be TK through first grade.
Okay.
And
so
that would
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Depending on the start date. If our start date was on the beginning of a week, then that would be a Tuesday, Wednesday. If we started in the middle of the week on a Wednesday, which kind of gives us a chance to do, you know, a systems check on Monday and Tuesday, just to make sure that everything is in place and ready. Then we would do the TK through first grade on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then we'd look at the second and third grade coming back the following Tuesday, Wednesday. And then our fourth and fifth grade would come back the following Thursday, Friday. So that's kind of what we're looking at phasing in over the course of about a 7-day period, depending on when we start.
So then technically then for the like fourth and fifth graders, which are my two, they wouldn't be looking at starting until April 29th and 30th.
That's if we go with that target date that the board set at its last meeting of April 19th. They would start sooner if the start date got moved up.
Okay. Is that a possibility?
It's going to be discussed at the Board of Trustees meeting on Thursday, March 4th at 6:30. So tune in, and I anticipate that it's going to be a very informative discussion.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Our next parent is Monica.
Did I unmute that?
We can hear you.
Oh, great. Hi. Thank you so much for being here and all of your communication and all that jazz. The gratitude goes far and beyond words. I have a couple of questions. I do believe it was touched upon when John, one of the parents, mentioned. So the survey's coming out this Friday. Is that correct?
The survey is going to come out on Wednesday. We would like parents to respond by Friday so that we can use the weekend to look at the results.
I wanted to make sure because I know I filled it out before, but I knew a new one was coming, so I haven't missed it yet.
Yeah.
So it's coming out Wednesday. Now on that survey, this is the question. The parent will have the choice of either hybrid or distance, and the teacher will be listed for both options. Yes. So essentially, if we wanted to go for hybrid, we could choose that teacher for whichever hybrid AM or PM, if that teacher is going to be in the hybrid choice, or we could choose the DL option for whichever teacher is. I don't even know if I'm making myself, I'm confusing myself. I'm trying to figure out how do we know which teacher the kid is going to get?
Right. So Monica, if your current teacher for your son or daughter is listed, and let's just say you want hybrid, and that teacher's listed in hybrid, you will have the same teacher. If you'd like to have distance learning and your current teacher is not listed, then there will be a change. Does that make sense?
Yes. So so opposite for both, right? If my child wants hybrid, but that teacher's not listed, then she would be rostered.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Okay, that's correct. Okay. And so, but still that's not final because you're still determining how many people or you already know because you already know which teachers have decided to go hybrid.
I think the more accurate is that we have some teachers that because of health concerns may have had to request a distance learning only position. And based on the surveys that we've done in the past, it looked like the demand was going to call for one distance learning position per grade per school. So based on that information, we have assigned one distance learning teacher per grade per school. And that's going to be the initial point that we'll have in our survey. And after we get the results, we'll see if that still holds.
Okay. And is there, thank you for clarifying all of that. The other thing, the other question I have is it a possibility that we would actually extend our school year past the original date of, I think, the 31st of May? Because, well, I guess there's lots of reasons, but, or is that still the final day of last day of school?
The last day of school right now is scheduled to be May 28th. And to extend all of our teachers' contracts would take a pretty big infusion of funding from the state. And whenever the phrase big infusion of funding from the state is involved, then that is more and more unlikely.
Pretty much a no.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good because I mean, we also have spring break coming up. So I imagine that we wouldn't, you know, the hybrid wouldn't start until after spring break, even if we do go into the red zone.
That's the conversation that is going to be had at the board meeting on March 4th, whether or not we're going to stick with that target date of when we return from spring break, or if we are going to move that start date up.
Okay, so time will tell still, and the survey is in the board in the next meeting.
Right. Monica, one of the reasons why we have the survey due on Friday is so parents can get the information from the school board meeting on Thursday and then fill out the survey so that they know.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks again so much for everything, you guys. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Monica.
You bet.
Our next parent is Stephanie Driscoll.
Hi there. Thanks for being here and answering all the questions. I have a couple. One is about hand washing. I think it's great that you've set up extra stations, but I just foresee, as a teacher myself, the logistical nightmare of actually hand washing so many kids with the proper procedures and how that would take away so much instructional time. Is there going to be an option for children to use hand sanitizer, or do they need to actually wash with soap and water before and after entering?
No, there'll be as Mr. Kelly indicated, there'll be hand sanitizer in every classroom as well.
Okay.
But also I believe every single classroom has a hand washing station in it as well.
Okay.
So, you know, depending on the routines of the classroom and the teacher, again, we just wanted to put in more hand washing stations around campus. And one piece that I'm not sure if they're installed yet, but we will be having some outside hand washing stations installed at Robert Down as well.
Okay, and then also one of the slides mentioned for special ed that related services will be remote. Does that include resource room, instructional minutes, and also the behavioral therapy from Monterey County Behavioral Health? Are those also going to be remote?
Yes,
okay.
Those will continue to stay the same as they are right now.
And lastly, the date proposed at this next meeting on the 4th, will that be a definitive date for the start date?
I believe it is an action item. I don't know if Dr. Forrest wants to speak on that, but it will be a part of the action item for the board. And I believe once they vote, it will be solidified that will be a solid date. Dr. Forrest?
Yes, Mr. Keller, you're correct. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Yes, you're correct. We will have it as an action item on the board meeting. We're trying to bump it up as soon in the agenda as we can. A meeting starts at 6:30, and we have it placed there so that the board can have the opportunity to discuss and revisit the start date. I think the discussion here on this town hall, certainly they're all here in the audience. They all are hearing the input, so I'm sure that will have some part of the discussion as well. So and that should be the final decision, or as close to final as we can get anyway. So.
Okay, great. And then just a final question. I know there's going to be structured play, but will there be an option for kids just to have unstructured play on their section of the playground, or will they have to be following certain rules or games? I want for the social emotional piece, I think it's important for kids to be able to, you know, socialize on their own as opposed to having an adult tell them what to do.
Stephanie, it's going to be a combination. So look at it this way. There's going to be one station where the children can play with jump ropes, but how they play with jump ropes is going to be up to them. There's going to be another section of the playground where they might have hoops that are available. And if they want to hula hoop, if they want to roll the hoops, that they'll have the opportunity to do something like that. And then there will be one group that will also have access to the play structure. And then what will happen is each day the group will change. the kind of play that they get to do. So the structure really comes in the group staying together and the station being contained, and really like one toy that's available for that day.
Okay.
But the play is the fun part. That's where the kids
Right.
actually get to play. So
Exactly. Thank you.
Our next parent is Christy Markowitz.
Hi, yes, just want to say thank you for everything that the staff is doing. I guess I had a question that's kind of specific to my situation. I have two children, one at Robert Down and one at Forest Grove. And so I'm foreseeing some issues with dropping off and picking up, especially because there's going to be no buses. I think those can get solved, but I'm wondering if there will be a flexibility to possibly have them both in the same school, since they're all doing the same thing across grades. And I know that they're probably not going to have, it's likely that they're not going to have their actual teacher that they have now in person. So it'd just be so much easier for me to have them both in the same school. That was my first question. I'm also wondering, what's the maximum number of students you are allowed to have in distance learning mode? And then my last quick question is there going to be PE in in-person learning? And that's it. Thank you so much.
As far as having both of the students be able to attend the same school, we can have a meeting about that a little bit later and come up with a solution that's going to work for your family. As far as the max number of students that can be in distance learning legally on our contract and our memorandum of understanding, that level is based on our contract. And I don't want to misspeak, but that number is in the low 30s. And we would anticipate being able to stay lower than that, but we can go up to the contractual limit as far as the distance learning goes.
And for PE, Christy, it will not be live. Again, it's kind of like the bus situation at this time, and with BASRP, it just puts too much stress on the cohorts and the integrity of the cohorts with the mixing of the students. And because PE classes are a lot of bodies out there. So at this time, PE will remain as distance learning, but it will be provided during the asynchronous time. Okay, our next parent is Laurel Flaherty. Say it correctly.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, great. I actually have three questions. The first one is, and it was touched on a little bit, and
we still have you, Laurel. We still have you.
Okay, thank you. We've talked about the school board meeting this week, and that the action item is being bumped up. I was just curious as what would be the reason for changing the April 19th date? And is there anything that us as parents can do one way or the other? And what would be those factors to actually push that up prior to April 19th? Because as a parent, I think planning for that is a huge factor in if this changes, that would be really relevant. So trying to understand that before Thursday comes, so that when we're making these decisions, that would be helpful. So that's the first question. The second question was about PE, and I appreciate the former parent asking about that. So that is great that PE will still be part of our asynchronous if we choose hybrid. So I just wanted to clarify that, that even if we do hybrid, then the PE portion of that will be in asynchronous. And then the third question is, during the surveys, will we be able to, you spoke about that in our particular scenario, we're going to the hybrid and our teacher is going to be at homeschool. So will we know, you talked about the fact that it's going to be based on an alphabetical split So will we know the teacher that we will get if we choose when we're making the request or choosing when we're going through the survey? And will there be an area for any special requests? So if we're a family who has a bubble group and might need to choose something different as far as a morning or afternoon, during the survey, will we have that choice to do that? Or is there another outlet for us to be able to communicate to you all about that? And those are my 3 questions. Thank you.
Laurel, if I can, I'll handle the last one. The survey is going to have a comments section, and we can put special requests in that comments section as well. When you're choosing the hybrid program on the survey, there will not be a teacher choice for that hybrid program. The teachers in the hybrid program are going to be listed, but there's going to be multiple teachers, and you'll find out the assignment after the rosters are built.
And I can go ahead and answer a little bit in regards to the board. As we've talked about in this several board meetings now, the goalposts kind of seem to get moved quite a bit in regards to the guidelines that we get. And so I think the board is trying to monitor what changes we're seeing happen around us in regards to when schools can open, how they can open, what guidelines should they follow. If you've been following the news at all today, we actually, the governor and the legislature are poised to pass an alternate proposal, which is going to change some of the dynamics as well. We're doing our research on that to try to see how that will impact. So I think part of the board's decision is around what's happening with the county guidelines so that we can make some adjustments as necessary. I think the board also wants to hear more from parents in regards to just kind of the need. And I know there was a lot of commentary on the last board meeting. So I think the board wanted an opportunity to continue the discussion a bit more. So if you want to write the board ahead of time and email them, you're certainly welcome to do so, and that can get your thoughts to the board early as well.
Folks, our host for the meeting is going to need to open the middle school meeting at 6:30. We know that we still have a number of questions that are where you have your hands up. If we do not get to your question in the next few minutes, then please feel free to email myself or Mr. Keller, and we will respond to you early in the day to tomorrow. I mean, we do want to hear all of the questions and the comments and the concerns, which is the reason why we're having this meeting and having the conversation. And I'll stop talking so we can get in as many questions as we can in the next 6 minutes or so.
All right, our next parent is Jessica Contreras.
Hi. First I want to say thank you for all the hard work and everything you guys have put into this. But I have one suggestion and then a couple questions. One suggestion is for the kids that are, if we're going back to school, I suggest bringing some lotion. I don't know if you guys are gonna have lotion available in the classroom, because after so much hand washing, it kind of comes up to skin dermatitis, and then that could be also a different issue for the kids. And one other question, my questions are, the kids that choose to stay at home, will they have the same kind of curriculum as they're having now? Will that affect them to move into the next grade? And will they have support if they're having trouble with any of the subjects like math, English, or whatever? And that's it.
Great. Yes, the distance learning program is going to remain the same. And when you think of the live instruction, it's going to be the same instruction that the distance learning program is doing. The only difference is that the teacher is going to be teaching it live. We are going to keep those Mondays open for planning so that all of the teachers, whether they're in hybrid or they're in distance learning, are going to be covering the same content standards. And what our teachers are doing is identifying the most important skills that the students need in order to get ready for the next grade. And that's where the emphasis of teaching is going to be. So we think that the students will still be ready for the next grade, even though the year has been an odd one, to say the least.
Okay, next parent is Chris Darton.
Hi, thanks very much. I appreciate you guys holding the meeting. You had one of the first slides saying that the distance learning track will not change at all, and I know you just reiterated that. I would like to get some more details on what that actually entails, particularly because are we really not anticipating there's going to be any shift in pacing or rigor while having to the DL track to match up with a hybrid track? What about the small groups, friendship groups, multiple tracks of math classes that have been offered thus far? Live PE and live music have been offered. Is that going away? It's only going to be asynchronous. What about the impact on class size and stability? If there's one distance learning class and then the number of students in that class might go up by 50% or more. Additionally, if anyone quarantines, then those people are going to jump in and the distance learning teacher is going to be handling them on a one-off basis. If anyone changes their mind, that's going to change the class dynamics. Are we not anticipating any impact on the amount of feedback available, the amount of one-on-one time availability from teachers? Which you mentioned is all going to go down for the hybrid based on manpower, amount of minutes that students have. And so basically, a lot of bullet points, but I'm not sure I can envision that the distance learning track is not impacted, is not changed. And I would like to hear more about that before everybody makes a final decision. Thank you very much.
Sure. Well, I met with Mr. Macer and our PE staff today to see how we could provide live time. And I know Mr. Macer met with Mr. Gray, the PE teacher over at Forest Grove last week as well. And I think they've figured out a pretty good plan to provide live instruction for both DL and for the hybrid students while they're in their asynchronous time. Once we have that plan finalized, of course, we'll share that with everyone. But that is the plan to provide that. Going back to any kind of counselor time, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to meet with Ms. Fruden. I'm not sure if Mr. Rogamans met with Ms. Roach to determine how they're going to continue. That will look different for sure for our hybrid students. It may look the same for our distance learning students though, but we'll see. Trying to go back. Oh, for feedback, all of our instructional assistants will remain providing support virtually for both distance learning and for our students during their asynchronous time that are choosing the hybrid track.
Mr. Keller, I think that we're going to have to bring things to a close. Parents, please send the messages that you have for us, and we can put together a FAQ document of all of these questions that come to us from the town hall. If it's an individual matter, we're happy to answer it on an individual basis, but it's something that applies to everyone. Mr. Keller and I will craft an FAQ document. Before we close, parents, both Mr. Keller and I really want to extend our thanks and our appreciation to you. We have become partners in our children's education more than we ever have this year than in any other time in the past. And you have our deep, heartfelt gratitude and appreciation because, man, we know just how hard this is. Mr. Keller and I both have children. They're a little bit older, but yeah, we really extend our great gratitude to you and really appreciate everything that you've done. So thank you for coming to the town hall, and send those questions our way, and Mr. Keller and I will get answers back to you. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.